welcome back to the Splitting Hairs podcast presented by Jackrabbit Illustrated. And tonight it is our special episode that we have kind of started to do yearly now, an annual tradition, the State of State with Justin Sell, the Athletic Director at SDSU, and someone that I have known now for 15 years. So pretty cool there. Justin, how the heck are you tonight?
I'm doing great. And it's amazing how quick time goes by and getting to know you as a student here. And then obviously all the things that have transpired over the last 14 plus years. It's just been an incredible run. I'm so grateful to be at a place like SDSU and to work with the people I get to work with every day, the student athletes I get to support, and then people like yourself, our fans, our donors, the people who made it to Frisco. Those experiences and what we get to share are second to none anywhere in the country. And so I feel really, really lucky to be the AD here at SDSU.
Hey, awesome. Before we dig in too far, we do have one sponsor we got to thank right off the top here. Kubota Dealers of South Dakota, a new sponsor this year. And I was watching highlights, I think Amar's highlights. I saw the Kubota signs in the end zone at Dana J. Dykehouse Stadium too. So Tyan, huge supporter of the Jacks. And I got to tell you guys, and I'm guessing he's listening, but I did just pick up a BX 2680, a subcompact tractor from Kubota just a couple weeks ago. And it is awesome. I've used the loader to move some dirt. I've mowed my yard, a big 60-inch deck. So, and then I have a snowblower for this winter. So I am set. I want to thank the folks at Kubota, especially the ones here in South Dakota, for hooking me up with that. And if you are interested in the Kubota tractor, we have Brookings, Belfouche, Isabel, Mobridge, Fort Pierre, Sioux Falls, and Rapid City. So that's where you can go to get your Kubota. So again, I got mine at Watertown. I missed Watertown on my list. I got mine at Eastside Equipment in Watertown. So thank you, Kubota, for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate it. So Justin, back to that 15 years ago, you've been here. So my first time meeting you was in the old student union before Einstein's was added on under there, back when that area was the Crest Room. And so that's where we had your open house, I believe, where you could get to know the campus. We could ask you any questions that we threw out, that kind of stuff. So I was just a student senator at that time, but thank you for everything you have done at SDSU. We were talking before the show started, and the scholarship auction a month ago now, you had the trophies lined up from sideline to sideline in the indoor practice facility. Talk about that success that you've had in these 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think, our main intent, and it's hard because I think by our nature, we don't necessarily brag. We kind of get to work and do our deal, and hopefully the results speak for themselves. I think at the end of the day, most of us that are proud of this program are proud because it's good people. And I think at the end of the day, when you look at the breadth of those achievements, and the trophies really are a visual kind of a piece that it's hard to just put on a piece of paper or to read them off. I think being able to show them, and really the intent was, all those folks in that room that are supporting the auction are our season ticket holders. They're our corporate sponsors. They've helped fund our facilities. Their willingness to give to all those different areas, to be here, to be present, to give us an encouraging word when we need one. There's a reason we've won so many championships, and I just wanted people to understand that their investments and their willingness to support us is really what's created the culture of success. And so year after year, we've had a chance to put some pretty amazing trophies on the board, and certainly none bigger than the national championship trophy this year with football. And I think it was just a really cool way to kind of showcase that. And I hope people out there that are listening take a ton of pride. It's taken all of that work, and it didn't come easy. It didn't come fast. It's been hard work over the years. And I think, that ability to plug away and find a way to get 1% better and 1% better and not chase things we aren't, to stay true to who we are, to be patient when it calls for it, and to be aggressive when it calls for that too. And I think those trophies are just a great symbol of all that stuff that's been created, the excellence that's here because of the support that we get.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. So I know it's behind you, but we have to talk about the big trophy that you added to the collection this year. We have a comment from Dustin Helton, who's one of our friends. He's a Stephen F. Austin fan down in Texas there. After the disrespect from some media outlets, including a guest on my podcast itself, how good did it feel to win the Natty and quiet the haters?
It's that's probably maybe something that just happens. I don't know that we necessarily went into it with any of those intentions in mind. It felt amazing on a couple of counts. I think, just like I was saying, we worked really hard at it, and we had some tough losses to end each year for a long time, including many up north in Fargo. A few we've flown back from Montana not feeling great, and I think all those things kind of play together. And when you've got guys like Jimmy Rogers and Zach Lujan and certainly Coach Stig and people that have put everything into this program, that pain can be very motivating as well. And I think what was really rewarding was to be able to go down to Frisco and to have it against NDSU. And all respect to them, I mean, it's incredible what they've accomplished. But, we needed to beat them in the playoffs, and to get a chance to do that in the national championship game, to do it so emphatically. But by every measure, I mean, it was a 3.5-hour infomercial for SDSU. The flyover was incredible. Our tailgating, your tailgating, but all the people that were there and supporting the Jackrabbits, the team walkthrough, the Pride of the Dakotas owned the stadium, and then all of our former football student athletes that have been engaged and really reconnected, especially in the last several years. But to have 300 of them, out at practice the day before, and just those connections and the feeling that was there, whether that quieted some haters, or I like to say it made all of us lovers feel great. We've all been part of it. We know what's gone into it. And, I think we finally got our spot in FCS football that we've been working at for a while. And to be honest, you play the long game, Matt. It's never about one game or maybe even one season. It's what are the things that are going in. You're always trying to win that Saturday, but there's always lessons to be learned. There's younger kids to develop. There's things that happen within seasons that play out seasons down the road too. And so it was never for us just getting one. We needed to do that, but we plan on being there every year. It's something that we hope it's not a surprise, and we hope that we're back and we're a team that people have to contend with as well. But just knowing the people that have been involved, and then, hey, we can't talk about the national championship without talking about Stig and his impact. And I think I can speak for all of us that love the Jackrabbits. That may be the greatest thing ever, is to send him out with a national championship, because good guys deserve to win. And he's a perfect example of everything that's right about being here.
Mm-hmm. And just him throughout, just the run in the playoffs. His press conferences were so him. They were so perfect. Seeing that giant smile up on the stage at the national championship, you guys up there, and seeing him just really getting to take it in, and seeing that giant crowd that was out there to honor him and the team and you. And so that was just incredible. And then he came on with us, and did an hour with us, and we got to walk around Stig's basement while he looked for a phone charger. And just the authenticity of it all was just, incredible. And couldn't be any happier for him, as someone, I've admired him for a long time. So, yeah.
Well, and he evolved over the years. You know, he could have been more stuck in his ways as he got longer in his career. He never was. He trusted his assistants. He trusted the student athletes on the field. He put that confidence in all of us that we can get there. We can do this thing. And you know, I give him a ton of credit. He's a learner. He loves to grow. He's obviously a great connector, but he's a pretty darn good football coach, and I'm glad he's ours.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we got another question here in the chat, and this is from our friend Ron Lowney, highlighting September 9th already. Ron's a huge Montana State fan and attends our weekly shows. So do you and Leon ever have, any talk or any bets on the way up to the game when we face Montana State?
Well, Matt, you know, betting is illegal in the NCAA,
yes,
so
that's true. Yeah.
he might owe me a few beers from the last one, but yeah,
Good
Leon
call.
and I, yeah, we talk frequently. You know, I think it's just been really neat. The reason he was the perfect person for Montana State was, I think, both learning from Northern Iowa and learning to build, and then coming here and you know, the lessons that we had to learn really apply. And being a land grant school, there's so many similarities. Their fan base is so supportive. Obviously, they fill their stadiums on Saturdays. You know, they just Leon's done a great job there developing facilities. And, you know, we've got two of the best teams in the country. Certainly could have made an argument last year. You know, Montana State was every bit as good as anybody else. And so, you know, to have a little history with them in the playoffs, I think there's a nice little rivalry going. But I have tons of respect for him and what they're doing there. You know, to win those games, you have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. You got to go take it to them, and I respect that a lot. But they're going to be players in this thing for a long time too. And September 9th is going to be incredible as far as an early season game, and it's going to be one of those that maybe sets the bar a little bit for potential home field in the playoffs and frankly making the playoffs. I mean, we talk every year like that's just assumed, but when you look at our schedule, you know, last year with the 4 road games in the Valley alone, and then Iowa, you're trying to parse this out, like which ones are we going to be able to take care of and make sure we make the playoffs first, and then how do we secure a high seed? So I don't take anything for granted. But that, boy, we'll sell it out. I mean, it's going to be an amazing early season game in college football. Forget FCS stuff. Just in college football, it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, it'll be our first non-conference sellout. I'm anticipating that as well. So pretty dang exciting. Anything special for that one? I'm guessing the Western Oregon is going to be the ceremony for the national championship.
Yeah, we'll do that Thursday night, and we wanted students to be involved. That was really the main reason of moving it from Saturday. That weekend's tough for a lot of folks traveling too, and I don't know that you can win either way. I mean, there's cases to be made to play either of those days, but we thought on Thursday night at 7:00 we can do a lot of things. We certainly want to honor Stig too, and so the opportunity to do that, the opportunity to do some things with around the national championship. There might be a few things we're going to do in the stadium to kind of obviously recognize it, but maybe move a few things around and maybe a few names on some things might change a little bit. So it's going to be a really good Thursday night opener. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, that's awesome. Good. I love when you give us nuggets like that. Yes. You know, speaking of some of the facilities and things like that. Been a big year. Obviously, Damian was on with Chad and Jordan for the wrestling podcast, The Takedown, talking about the Kurtenbach Center, right? There's the Kurtenbach practice facility, whatever. What's the name actually on it?
It's a Kurtenbach Family Wrestling Center.
Okay, perfect. Talk about that a little bit. Just the transformation that's going to be for the program itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. If you haven't been through it, you need to get over. Now, Damian will make you take your shoes off, but he'll give you a personal tour and walk you through, what that's going to do for the wrestling program. You know, he's obviously positioned us extremely well, super successful spring, and I think we're just scratching the surface and getting started. That facility is critical to the development of our guys, certainly recruiting, it really matters. But to think what they were able to accomplish out of that old wrestling room, it's absolutely incredible. And to have the facility the way it is, so thankful of Frank. Frank Kurtenbach's been such a longtime supporter of wrestling, and from coaching and being a student athlete to being involved, designing and developing the kind of 3-sided wrestling clocks. That's Frank, and and so you got all these ties in wrestling, and to have him and his family be the lead gift on it is really special. And then there were so many other people in the wrestling community. Our supporters for wrestling are outstanding, and they really helped make that happen. And to me, it's probably a top 3 building in the country. Wow. And for us and what we're doing here at SDSU and wrestling in the Big 12 and what we're trying to do nationally, it's very reflective of that. And I think the way it fits into the building complex too, it enhanced the whole look of the Dyke House Student Athlete Center, the SJAC, the stadium. I think it fits really well there. And it's going to do unbelievable things. I would be surprised if we aren't in the top 10 here in the next year, and then I don't know that we'll leave it for a while.
Hey, good. You look at that lineup that's coming back for next year, with both Tanner coming back and Clay. Thank you. He's right up in my neighborhood up here. So. Yeah, both of them coming back to be the kind of the leaders of the squad, experienced at nationals, All-Americans themselves. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun year for the wrestling squad.
Yeah, they're outstanding guys. I mean, what they do academically and their love of this place, in a world that, from a transfer perspective, from NIL, from all the individualism that's out there, that our student athletes and their commitment to SDSU and being a Jackrabbit, I think they value their experience here. I think the support that we get from our community and fans matter. We have tremendous facilities. We have a chance to win. Coaches treat them really well. And I think that whole kind of combined piece, and to have those guys commit to wanting to finish their careers as Jackrabbits and be leaders, I think speaks volumes about what this place is.
Hey, indeed. Other facility stuff. Obviously, the First Bank and Trust Arena. We've started to see some pictures of that renovation. You're smiling. Talk about it. What's going on?
Yeah, it's amazing. It was probably the hardest one to visualize for me personally of all of our projects. I think somewhat in part because we built the practice gyms for men's and women's basketball kind of first and pulled that back from the building, so there was the space. So you're trying to envision what that looks like. Frost Arena itself, the top and the bottom don't speak very well to each other. They're kind of disjointed. And so how is this all going to kind of come together, and how do we maintain the feel of Frost Arena, which is critically important? Every Jackrabbit knows exactly what that means.
Yes.
At the same time, trying to find a way to modernize the fan experience and game day experience. And I might have snuck in there this weekend just to take a peek with the construction guys out for a little bit. But, to see some of the steel and the precast concrete coming in, I can tell you it's tight. The fans are going to be right on top of the action. The main entrance, when you come in that southeast corner, is going to be grand. Awesome. It's 3 stories high. It's just massive. And then you come up to that main concourse, and we're going to tell the story of the barn and Frost Arena and tie our history in that whole wall, 2 stories high in that main entrance. It's going to be a signature piece of a facility in the entire state of South Dakota. It's going to be one of the top pieces of any building. And so to see some of those things coming around, and then certainly we've been working with our friends from Daktronics on all the video board and ribbon boards and some of the other things that kind of bring it to life a little bit. So we saw some kind of mock-ups of those things here in the last week or two. And I think just from an excitement, and to have people come in this fall and get a sense kind of that it'll be framed in that whole second level. I mean, that whole south wall is gone. We have no more pull-out bleachers, wood bleachers in the top of the deal. We're going to reuse a lot of those pieces. The floor, old parts of Frost Arena, we're going to put into the new First Bank and Trust Arena, and so there's just some things that are kind of coming together. And then you realize, heck, we're at June 1st, and it's going to open, a year from this fall, and the clock is just moving. So I think we're all really, really excited to see some of the things that are taking shape.
Hey, cool. I'm glad you brought up kind of reusing the wood bleachers and the floor and stuff, because that was in some of the pictures. I think concession stands were maybe framed or something with some of the wood bleachers, and that looks cool. Because that's one of my first memories as a kid, going to Frost Arena to watch Shannon Schlegel there. So she's from my hometown. That's why I was there watching her. But she that's pretty cool. So I like that you did that. Got some of those elements in.
Yeah, history matters. Even Coughlin alumni, and being able to do the room with all the kind of the mural and some of the old pieces from that stadium. It's the reality of today's world. Very thankful for First Bank and Trust and our anonymous donor stepping forward to really take a big chunk of the fundraising, and that's the only reason this project's real. And then First Bank and Trust, to show great care, they wanted to make sure the history of Frost stayed with us. That was really important to them. It's important to all of us. I mean, your commencement memories, it used to be the workout facility. It was a classroom building. It was a D-shaped track. You had all these different elements, and our fans and folks that have been around have so many different memories and ties to the Frost that we don't want to just wipe those out or make them go away. We want to help build off those, create new ones, but celebrate our history a little bit.
Awesome. Can't wait to see it. I'm excited. That's for sure. Two maybe upcoming projects, soccer stadium. And then I know this spring with the weather, and I don't know if this would have helped even this spring, but turf for softball and baseball infields. Are those things that are on deck, or what are we thinking about with those projects right now?
Yeah, so for sure, they've been on deck. I mean, we've had them as part of some plans. We've been actively going out and actually working on fundraising probably the last 2 or 3 years, and sure. Each of those that you mentioned. The soccer piece is more of a stadium and bringing them back to campus, and certainly looking just east of the stadium, kind of where the intramural fields have been, kind of taking that first segment and turning it into a soccer stadium. Had some interest. I feel good, at least where we're going with softball. It's obviously a little less expensive to do the entire field for softball than baseball, but two things. Yes, the tournament would have been pulled off in time had we not had to pull the tarp and worry about, once you pull tarp and it rains, you're done. And so having turf, there were periods in each of those days we certainly could have played, stayed on schedule, and finished that tournament. Secondly, when you look at each of those programs, I'll just start with softball. We've been winning right around 40 games a year or more the last 4 years, and we're playing less than 10 games at home. And it's incredible what they've been able to do. But for those student athletes and their experience, you want home games. You want to play in front of our fans. We've got a great ballpark. We've got the outfield party decks, and the parents have a blast. And it's turned into a great event. And shift over to baseball. I'm pretty sure we played one game that wasn't at Bob Sheldon and Brookings this year on that field. And, you can't say you feel great about our students' experience when we're playing again in baseball. It's been more like 6, 7, 8, 9 games a year. And if we got turf, we certainly could play by the end of March, because we can clear the snow off, and there's plenty of days that are good enough. It's just the frost line coming out, tied in with how much moisture you get in the spring. Realistically, April 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th is going to be your starting time. So those are critically important to us moving forward. And then I would just say we're also kind of assessing, our first master plan was done in 2010 and 11, and it was really to go to kind of 2025. And when you look at not only those facilities we just talked about, but locker rooms for baseball, softball, soccer, and track and field, when you look about or think about an academic center, and if we could do an academic center, then can we upgrade and enlarge our football locker room? Those are pieces that we're trying to figure out. How can we do that? What's the square footage, and then the cost to do that, and putting together a plan that we hope to roll out here this summer. We're working on, a lot of people want to give right now, which is great. We've got to really define what that looks like so we can make sure we finish these projects as well. And then when you come into our building, the whole space below our offices, there's tremendous square footage. It just needs to be probably relooked at.
Sure.
And for the university, looking at the swimming pool as we move down the road here in the next several years, that's going to have to be addressed probably from a university perspective. And arguably, let's say it moved out of its current location. Well, if you fill that in, what's that square footage look like, and what can you do? So there's a lot of moving parts and some things that, really get me excited. It's hard because on one hand, everyone talks about, well, what else do you have to accomplish? Because we built so many facilities. I mean, we're pushing 190 million in the last 10 years in athletic facilities, but some of the ones we have left, they might not be the $30 and $40 million projects, but they might have the most impact on finishing that experience for our student athletes.
Sure. Okay. Wow. I had no idea on some of those. So that's cool, Justin. Man. Wow. So one thing, when you're talking about schedules earlier for football, you got to go back here for a second. And you said the gauntlet, right? That is typically our yearly schedule. So I'm doing previews for our Missouri Valley foes, and I just got to USD's. How does USD draw a schedule with Indiana State, Western Illinois, and Murray State on it? Likely the three worst programs in the Valley this year for football, and we don't play a single one of them. How does that work?
Yeah, I think that's been complained about, talked about, mentioned, 10 and 15 years ago. And I always remember Patty Viverito said, some of that is cyclical. Like in the past, Western Illinois had some really good playoff teams.
Sure.
Southern Illinois was at the top of the conference, in 2002, 3, 4, 5. So there is some cycles to it. Missouri State obviously was much more competitive and had good teams the last couple of years. And so, those schedules rotate. Obviously, as we've continued to change and add more teams, it's created more buys, if you will, or teams you don't play on a given year. And so there's just a little quirk to it. I think, for us, the challenge is, look, we want to play UNI, we want to play NDSU, we want to play USD, UND. Those are great games as far as selling tickets and high interest in our area. And, and so there's a little geography to that as well. In terms of trying to balance that off. And so when we put in schedule requests, we're going to play those teams that are closest to us and our rivals. And generally they've been good over the last 10 years. So it's challenging. Our bigger challenges are honestly more in the non-conference schedule. Just the fact that it's not only getting people to want to play us, it's hard to get them to take the phone call right now. There isn't a whole lot of interest in folks wanting to come up to Brookings and play in Dana J. Dykehouse, even no matter what we pay for a guarantee. So the scheduling piece is really interesting. The Power 5 piece and what's kind of going on with realignment and some maybe holding off to see where that goes makes it, just less selections. Mm-hmm. I would give a little insight because I think some people probably had questions when we moved the Drake game to Target Field. We brought in Western Oregon just to give folks maybe a little insight. Look, when we started, we had September 9th was Montana State. We knew that. September 16th was Drake. We still needed a game, all right, to get to 11. And when you look at the schedule, that leaves Labor Day weekend or the 23rd. Well, realistically, you can't do the 23rd because we'd be playing 11 straight weeks again,
Yep.
just like we did last year. And I don't think that was in the best interest of our program. Secondly, Jimmy and our whole new coaching staff getting their feet wet and having a game before we played Montana State was kind of a priority. We wanted an opportunity for them to work out, just communication and when you take timeouts, how do you manage the games before you get into a top 2 or 3 matchup with Montana State the second week? We'd be crazy not to get a game under our belt. Now, we had to do it just based on timing and working with the Minnesota Twins, who have been awesome to work with. That game is going to be really cool. People need to get up there and support that one and be there. It'll be a unique experience. But by being able to move that to Target Field, it opened up then to do a home game, which we obviously moved to Thursday of Labor Day weekend. But that gave us 2 home games, technically another kind of home game. Then we're off a week, and then we have at home against North Dakota for the first game in the Valley. And everyone who thinks 4 games and 5 weeks at home is the greatest thing ever, it starts to be tough on the other side. It's not the easiest to get people to come back week after week. And so we felt really good about getting the best balance out of the schedule, trying to balance. Look, we've got 6 home games, 4 road games, and 1 neutral game in Minneapolis that really is another home game. Yep. And so, I look at it as a phenomenal opportunity for us to showcase our football program, to get the games in where we need to, and then hopefully to set up for success. Look, you can't win a national championship if you're not in the playoffs. So the first thing you have to make sure of is we can't schedule ourselves out of the playoffs.
Yep.
That's primary objective number 1. So just to give a little insight, that's how every season there are those wrinkles and twists. People love to look up San Diego State's schedule and, well, you're open these days. Well, guess what? They aren't playing us. I mean, they would never want to play us. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And so all those things that look open or look like somebody has a date. We talked to a school that we thought would be great to try to do in week 0 to try to get on ESPN, but they were already playing NDSU and another Power 5. And why would they add South Dakota State? I mean, there are those quirks that you can see an open date, but it doesn't mean that they're really open to play a school like ours. So just a little bit of background.
Oh, no, that makes sense. I'm pumped for that Twins game, or the game at Target Field, not a Twins game. So, but it is going to be unique. I'm definitely excited for that. And some of the media outlets up there have been starting to pick it up and talk about it a little bit on KFan and stuff. So that's good recruiting right there too, right? To hear SDSU mentioned on KFan up there is pretty neat. So, you spoke a little bit about some of the realignment stuff. Brendan from our team did a 4-part series a couple weeks ago on laying out some of the issues with the FCS to FBS move. And that's something that we've heard quite a bit from up north in Fargo. And some of our own fans have started to consider it as well. And Brendan, I thought, did a really good job laying out some of the scheduling issues, some of the conference issues that we would have, TV markets, travel partners, money, stadium size, all of that, those things. What are your thoughts right now, Justin, on, FCS to FBS move?
I think first and foremost, and I've said this for probably at least 10 years, these are hard enough jobs to be really good on, just for yourself. And so you got to be really careful. So I'm giving a little preface, and then I'll certainly answer your question. But I think you got to be really smart as you work through these options, as you build your program. Look, conferences want successful programs. And so my job, number 1, is to make sure we're wanted, that we're really good in everything that we do. That way, when things start to balance out, as things change, none of us can give you the crystal ball. None of us really know exactly what's going to transpire, from both the Power 5 and do they consolidate more? What levels? Are we even talking FBS and Autonomy 5 and FCS and 1 AAA, or is it two different levels, or is it, football and their football's one thing and all the other sports are another? There are too many variables at play. Geography is certainly an impact for us. There's no question. That's a limiting factor. I think from time zones to travel to actual numbers of teams, we're really thoughtful about football's really important for us to get right, whatever that kind of looks like. And I think, if you follow the line over time, generally the football playing schools, especially at our level, are good at every other sport too. I mean, and I think there's something to build around at least that concept as things start to work. And I would say it more simply, who do we feel like we should be playing against? Whatever this next iteration is, what are the schools we feel are great competition, that are worthy rivals, that challenge us to be better, that make us have to grow? I'm trying to stay away from designations because I don't know that they'll actually even hold, so trying to think of it more from a geographical, regional, how do we put ourselves together with really good football, really good men's and women's basketball, which then soccer, softball, baseball, volleyball all fall in line with that. And then for us, wrestling is another component that's important. How do we make sure we position that? So there isn't any one answer other than continuing to make sure we're really good at what we do. We do have the ability to grow. I firmly believe that. But I also think there's a lot of fool's gold out there right now. And I think there's a lot of millions and millions of dollars that's maybe not being spent wisely. So you got to watch. I'm not going to put our university or athletic program in a position that financially we could be in big trouble too. You want to work those things, but I do believe in us. I do believe there's opportunities to grow. I feel really good about where we're at today. I think, that we've prepared very well over the last several years. We're fortunate to have Patty Viverito as the Valley commissioner, but Josh Fenton on the Summit League side is outstanding. He's done a really good job. He's really sharp. He's very modern with his approach. We've got great leaders in the right spots. And then, we had our ADs meetings last week in Denver. And I think collectively, the presidents and the ADs that are around the table right now are probably the best that we've had collectively in my time at SDSU. And that gives me great hope that we can work together. We can come up with things that are going to help us all be successsul. So I think the future's bright. You just have to find a way to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And, and for our fans, and I've always appreciated this, their trust in us, their willingness to understand there's a lot of layers to these decisions that we have to make, and that sometimes patience is a choice. It doesn't mean you're asleep at the wheel. It doesn't mean you're going to miss opportunity. It means you're trying to position yourself to capitalize on the best opportunity that might come forward. And I really think the pandemic taught us a lot about patience and understanding how to position yourself. And we've just kind of rolled that over and used that over the last couple of years. And I do believe it's why we've maintained a very high level of success. You could say it a little differently. Our floor has gone way up. Our floor, you have to come beat the Jackrabbits if you're going to beat us. We're not going to beat ourselves. And that's pretty amazing in itself.
In virtually every sport now.
Everyone.
So, this kind of got sparked up recently, right, with Western Illinois leaving. Anything on Summit League, stability wise or anything like that with WIU, heading out?
No, I think we're in really good shape right now, and it's I understand Western. I've got a lot of friends there. They've been really good partners over the years. I think most of us in our leagues understand from a budget standpoint, the state of Illinois and higher education, they deal with some different challenges than some of our other schools. And so from a OVC perspective, I think the timing was a little tough just from scheduling for us this next year. But I don't think there's anybody that doesn't understand why they would make that move. I think, probably the last 5, 6, 7 years were all possible for them to make that move. So, I don't think there's any heartburn with that, I think, we wish them well. I hope they find a spot that helps them be able to provide a good experience for their kids. And you need the right amount of money to do that. And I do think they were stretched in our league. With that, it provides opportunities to look at things a little differently. And so I don't think, I think some of our thoughts, our plans, what we're working on, I would just say I think we're on our game. We've got a lot of work to do. Might take a year or 2 or 3 to kind of evolve in this next iteration, because some of it we don't control. But, the parts that we do, we're going to have some really good plans and aggressively move forward.
Awesome. And I think, going back to your point before, fans trusting you guys and being patient, like, you've earned it, right? so you've earned the trust. So yeah. Couple other things. This last year, right, was the anniversary for Title IX for women's sports. And just the overall success of our women's programs, soccer, undefeated conference season, softball, undefeated conference season, right? Basketball, running through the conference again. Volleyball continues to elevate under coach. So just talk about that, some of the success that they've had in the past year, and celebrating that Title IX anniversary.
Yeah, it was really unique. So it was 50 years of Title IX, and I think for us, extra special. Kathy Halens and most of our folks that know her, she's kind of the heart and soul of this place. She's the positive person. Of all former student athletes always come back and go to her office first and want to reconnect. And she has the kind of, from academics and compliance and all the pieces of getting them here and getting them onboarded and helping them with progress towards degree and all those kind of student functions. Kathy's been a main person for most of our student athletes for the last 39 years. And so to be able to celebrate 50 years of Title IX, and Kathy's last year with us, she's retiring here June 21st. And it's been really special. And then to kind of be able to do some things with each of the teams with some jerseys, and then to sell those at the auction and put that money back into supporting women's opportunities here was really rewarding. And to see where those programs have how they've evolved, how they've grown. You talk about undefeated seasons. It's hard to have one in 5-year period or a 10-year period. And I think, if you add cross country and football, I think we had 5 teams that didn't lose the Summit League competition this year or their league competition, and led by our women's program. When you look at grade point averages, our women's student athletes are incredibly high, almost off the charts high, and nationally ranked in most of their programs. And so we're developing tremendous leaders. We're proud of that. I think South Dakota State's had a history of supporting women's athletics for a very long time, maybe before others did at the level we do. And so it's always been a value for us. But it's been really fun to celebrate. And boy, they put some great performances on the table for us here this year, and kind of marked it with an exclamation point.
Yeah, indeed. All right. The last 2 things are things we've talked about now for a couple of years, it feels like, every time we have you on. NIL and the portal. Last year at this time when we talked, I think we were all kind of licking our wounds from the NIL stuff with Baylor, going to Creighton and stuff. And it was fun to see him this year have a nice run with Creighton. But we also saw the other side with Tucker turning down NIL opportunities and recruiting opportunities from, Power 5 schools, some of which sounds like tampering to me, Justin, but that's, talk about NIL and how you're viewing it now, a year into it, at least.
Yeah. So we're actually into year 2, finishing year 2, sure. End of June. So, it's been an interesting deal. I think, I'm a big proponent that, especially for so many student athletes are on partial or no scholarships, the opportunity to help pay for their college education, I think most of us can really get behind. I think it gets a little more gray when you tie the six figures plus. To many kids that frankly haven't maybe earned or their NIL is tied into school elevates it as well. And then the tampering piece, the inducement piece, the using it in recruiting. I mean, there were just two things you couldn't do with it, and that's pay for performance and inducements in recruiting. And it feels like we're doing both, and no one really can kind of manage it. And I think there's a balance there. All the state rules make it really difficult. All our state's different than Oklahoma, which is different than Alabama, which is different than Florida and Texas. So I think trying to get that put together, I have great hope. I think Charlie Baker, the new NCAA president, does have a lot of political clout and knowledge and how to work with the federal government. I also think he's the first one I've heard really talk about there are level differences between many of our schools. What we're dealing with at South Dakota State is very different than Ohio State or Alabama's football program. And so he's recognizing some of those differences. Interestingly, most of our student athletes, look, I think a lot of them have had opportunities or at least been contacted or tried to be recruited from here. And I think I'm really proud of them because I think they value what goes into their experience. And I think if you polled most student athletes, this whole walk down the employment side, I think is pretty scary for most of them because people think that it's like a zero to everything proposition. But when you throw in scholarship and facilities and hiring quality coaches and the travel, and we have to get officials so you can play, we have to get equipment. We're putting $22 or $3 million back into our students' experience. And it's about a degree first, and it's about broad-based participation. And then you work on how do we be good? How can we win championships? How can we graduate our students at high levels? Those all have to be part of that. But I think that this whole notion of we have to pay these students. So we already have that form of athletics in our country, and it's called professional sports.
Yep.
Now, do we have to look at how many hours are we requiring? Do we take all their summers and their vacations and holidays? Do we make it feel like a job, or is there a way to balance that a little more and keep it around academics? Mm-hmm. And then the NIL piece specifically, I'm not naive to think that we may not have to do some things or that a collective might pop up or, we'll continue to work on those things. By and large, our donor base, I think they're willing to double down support on scholarships. On helping us with facilities and improving their experience, nutrition, mental health, career development. I think all those things are at play. I think having our students work summer camps or like Maya and Tori with her turn, There's some wonderful examples of where NIL is very powerful and very positive. And I think our fan base is really supportive of those. And then our student athletes, I think having enough to make sure that they can finish their degree and do those things, go home and see their family, do the simple things. Yep. I don't think our kids put the number one priority is making money. And that's where we're different, and I think we've been able to be patient. We've been able to work through that. Now, don't kid yourself. I have every plan of if we have collectives or if we need to get into it or, how the state might need to work on, is our state and the parameters that have been set up applicable and competitive with other states, but also watching where the NCAA goes with this. I do think in the next 6 months or so, there has to be some movement forward to put rules around it. So we better understand what we're actually playing in. I think you could get yourself in a spot where you might be doing something that could be deemed not legal or not part of what we're going to do down the road. And so you got to be careful of jumping the gun too. Yep. But I think given presidential elections and timeframes and politics, I think you're in a part where the federal government, the legislature, and certainly from a president perspective, if you wait more than a year, now you're going to get caught back up into the presidential election cycle and all the other things that go with it. And you kind of lose the audience. So I do think that some things need to get moving. I think they will. I'm hopeful, and so we'll see where it goes. But that whole employment piece is probably the one defining piece of the Power Five, and then the 280 of us other schools that still want to keep that athletic experience somewhat reasonable to what our current students that walk across campus every day experience. When that gets too gross,
Yep.
I don't know how you can justify it. I don't think any of us would feel comfortable with that. So how do you maintain that balance? How do you make sure these students are still getting degrees? And then how do we continue to compete at the highest level that's available to us? And we're gonna thread that needle.
Good. And just some of the goofier things. You mentioned her turn, which is awesome. But just the kids being able to sell the merch with their names, the Mimsy merch and stuff, and the Mayo stuff, things like that is cool. And seeing Mark and Isaiah and the Yankees get paid to sling some Applebee's, like stuff like that is pretty cool. And I am glad they're getting the chance to use their name, image, and likeness for that. That makes a ton of sense.
So. Well, they're actually doing work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really just paying somebody because they're playing for you. They're doing things. We have a lot of student athletes that do summer camps and are getting paid to do that. And so most of the examples that we have, our student athletes are doing things that I think we would all feel great about. I think they're contributing to a larger part of whether it's tying personality and our brand to the Applebee's commercial,
Yep.
or supporting youth and kids, or supporting women and kids and their opportunities to go to camps like Maya and Tori. I think there's just some really, really cool examples of some of the things our student athletes have done that are making a difference on both sides.
Sure. One thing on NIL too that I think about just nationally, you hear about some of these things are some of the deals gone bad, right? Where they gave a kid six figures and he never played, and then he transferred out. And you've seen a handful of those this year that really raised eyebrows, and maybe the market's going to kind of start to regulate itself a little bit there too, in some ways. With some of these large donations to 18-year-old incoming freshmen. So we'll see.
Yeah, the market always balances itself, and people will invest in things that they feel like return or make a difference. And if you're going to have that churn, and let's be honest, I mean, you could look at some of the major college football programs last fall who had some of the best collectives, didn't have some of the best seasons.
Yep.
So it's I do think the continuity, ability to hold it together, and then you can take a transfer or two here and there. Mm-hmm. I do think COVID and that extra year working itself out of the system will help. I do think there's a lot of student athletes entering the transfer portal and not finding a home. So there will be a market correction there too, because that's the worst case scenario for somebody. And then how NIL plays into this, there's some settling that has to happen to keep some sort of balance to the overall experience. And then, Matt, let's not forget, when students transfer, it affects their current teammates. I mean, and especially if they transfer late, you want to know who your quarterback is, or your shortstop, or your setter. I mean, those things are important. Yep. And so I always argue those student athletes that are left in the locker room too are impacted by those decisions.
Yep. And just as a broad statement, I really appreciate how the SDSU coaches are using the portal to address, they're not using it to build the team. They're using it to fill certain areas. If there's a weakness or whatever it may be, it's a supplement. It's not the way to build. And I think that's an awesome way to look at it. And I think that's what they're doing for the most part. So.
Hey, when you get to one and dones, when you get to all the transfers, you might have a flash in the pan where you'd win one time in a whatever year period. But if you want to win long term, for us, you're going to recruit high school students. You're going to develop them, And then I would say this: I think for football in particular, they develop for 3 years, and then all of a sudden they get these opportunities. Well, there is some risk in going to a new system, going to a place that you may not get the ball as much. You may not get to showcase your skills. If you dominate at our level and the level we play, you're going to have a chance to play at the next level for sure. And so I think it's that's a harder move. Why would you leave something that's as good as this, that you get to showcase yourself? And obviously we're having professional success, and those guys are getting opportunities. So I do think that plays into it as well.
Yeah. Justin, have you ordered your Tucker Craft jersey yet?
I have not. I have not. As a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, it might be hard, but I would put on an Eagles jersey. I would put on a Packers jersey with Chris Oladokin. I put on a Chiefs jersey to support my guy.
There we go. There we go.
I had a Lions jersey with Zenner, so I'll support all those guys for sure. But
well, good.
Very proud.
Good. Yeah. Anything else you would like to address with folks tonight?
I would say just kind of like I did at the top. This place is special. I've worked at a lot of other places that are really good. I've been around the country, been on national committees. Certainly meet with a lot of ADs on a lot of issues, and our problems here are problems of excellence. A chance to do great things, and you've all put us in that position. And I think I've never felt the pressure that you have to win this game. Our fans want to win and want to win over time, certainly want to win championships, want a chance to win a national championship. But I think we've rightly comprehended that the pursuit of that and how you build it, those things come. And it's never only about one thing or one moment. And I give so much credit, and it helps us do our work. It helps when you prioritize academics. It helps when you're supporting our students no matter what, when you're understanding that we've got tough challenges and difficult decisions. We've certainly have to continue to drive more revenue. We're very thoughtful about pricing and wanting to have access for everybody. But, you've got other decisions that have to be made, and changing names on buildings, all those things. I just think for me, just a big thank you. People have been really supportive, have made it really easy to want to come in here and work really hard. I'm really proud. We have 100 staff members that want to make South Dakota State great. They're proud to be part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that carries over to the student athletes who recruit. You see that reflected, and our fans encourage us and support us in that way. And if you continue to do that, I think our best years, honestly, are sitting right in front of us, which is kind of hard to say because of the success that we've had, kind of year after year over the last 10 years. But I really, truly believe that. I'm proud to say I'm a Jackrabbit. I want to be here, and I'm not settling. We still have a lot of stuff to accomplish, and I'm excited to do that. I hope folks want to continue to support the Jackrabbits and make those things happen, because, man, folks have made so many dreams come true, things we probably never thought possible 15 years ago. And now they've not only come into our reality, but we're dreaming even bigger from here. And man, what an experience. I have the best AD's job in the country, and I love it here.
Hey, awesome. Love to hear that. 15 years in and you still love it. So love to hear that, Justin. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Thank you to our Kubota dealers of South Dakota. Thank you for folks that are listening to this, catching on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And Justin, thanks for doing this. I mean, you sit down with us every year and give us an hour of your time when you could be doing anything else. So I appreciate it and appreciate you. So thank you.
You got me out of mowing the lawn tonight. So
hey, sorry, Jenny. All right. All right. And with that, go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Go Jacks.